Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Storm Talks. I have my girl Aysha with me today, and we're going to chop it up. We're going to speak about some real topics and discuss some
Sure.
amazing things, inshallah. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Wa alaikum
I'll cut
salam,
that out.
rahmatullah. I'm Aisha Mercedes, trauma counsellor, television presenter, and public speaker. So yeah, it's good to be here, man. I see a lot of you online,
Yeah,
and a
you
lot of your like
too.
really mashallah powerful responses
Telling
on.
men to shut up.
Oh yeah. Those giving it to them raw and real, man.
Yeah,
So
so are you. I love the fact. I feel like the most confident women are like the most bubbly, like laughy type of things, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
give me
yeah,
that energy as well. And obviously, I've been watching your content for a while now.
yeah.
And do you want to talk about yourself personally first in
Mm-hmm.
regards to your struggles with your health and
Yeah.
things like that, and just how you keep positive? Because I do watch you sometimes and I'm like, "Ugh, this is so sad."
Yeah.
I stay making dua for
Oh,
you.
jazakallah khair.
But yeah, so what's been going on with that?
Yeah, so the health wise, like it's really interesting. No one's ever really asked about my
I
health
know we
because
need
it's
to
like
know that you're okay.
yeah, jazakallah khair,
Yeah.
sis, man. I appreciate that a lot because there's a lot that I talk about. I kind of went from talking a lot about being a reaver and what that looked
Mm-hmm.
like and all of my trauma and all of that to kind
Mm-hmm.
of then television presenter and being known for that to then
Mm-hmm.
kind of like talking about the podcast that I used to do as well,
Yeah.
which was all about the community and the issues and secret second wife. So there's just been a lot. And then yeah, so I've got endometriosis, and I
Oh,
have it of the lung as
oof.
well. So that's where it's like it's a
I
bit
didn't
it's
even know that was possible.
yeah, neither did I. Neither did I.
Subhanallah.
So it just means that my lung, like when you have your period. So instead
Mm-hmm.
of mine, this is the best way of explaining it, because it's actually because someone corrected me on TikTok. You know what the
Mm-hmm.
TikTokers are like
Yeah.
when you put something out there, like no,
Yeah.
it's not the lining of the womb. It's similar to the lining of the womb, and I'm like, okay, I'm not
Okay.
a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
I'm just
spread it
trying to
like
live. I'm trying to deal
yeah,
with this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
the lining of the womb, similar to the lining of the womb,
Mm.
sheds, and then what happens with mine? It seems to bleed inside. So it seems to, instead of
Ooh.
like my
It's like
menses coming
fluid
out, yeah,
build up.
yeah, fluid build up. So what
Subhanallah.
happened was they sealed. I had a couple of surgeries where they sealed
Mm.
the gap between the lung and the chest wall that everyone has,
Yeah.
and because it was going into there, then I ended up with pneumonia, subhanallah,
Oh,
last year.
subhanallah.
I thought I had COVID. I was getting really ill, was really sick, felt like I had the flu and everything. Then I started losing weight. I couldn't keep down any food.
Mm.
Called an ambulance, took them about 7, 8 hours to come. Got to
So
the thing and
bad.
they were like, "Oh, you've got sepsis." They was like, "Oh no, you've got pneumonia." And then yeah, then I had my surgery. So alhamdulillah, the lung's been good.
Alhamdulillah.
Then it
Yeah.
kind of moved over to ascites, which
Mm.
then meant I looked. I don't know if you saw. I looked like I was like 7, 8 months
No, I
pregnant
didn't
because it
even know.
started going into my abdomen.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. So yeah, you asked a good question. How do I keep positive?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think after some time, you you know that whether you're ill or not ill, whether you're going for a test or not, being moany and miserable and complaining
Mm.
is not going to make it any easier. And I
Yeah.
think the more you change your mindset, and obviously this is learned and therapy and study, the more you change your mindset to just be like, "Do you know what, alhamdulillah,
Mm.
the quicker you get over it."
Yeah.
Because if you dwell on it, and I'm not saying I don't dwell, by the
Mm.
way, but
Mm-hmm,
if you
mm-hmm.
dwell on it and you focus so much on it, it kind of like it consumes you.
Mm.
So I think I just try to look at the positive of like, could have no legs, I could be in a
Yeah.
worse situation,
Mm.
and just try to be like
And obviously
grateful.
Allah's rewarding you in this time as well.
Yeah,
You're getting
subhanallah.
major rewards,
Yeah,
and the struggle is this dunya,
yeah,
literally.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
may Allah give you complete
I mean, I
shifa,
mean.
inshallah, and you can overcome this,
Mm,
with full healing. I don't want
I
this to
mean, I
be
mean, I know, yeah.
your pain and struggle anymore,
Jazakallah khair.
inshallah. But you are a trauma therapist and
Yeah,
a counselor.
yeah, yeah.
And I find that people who are counselors and trauma therapists, it's almost like their calling, you know. You go through
Mm,
things
yeah,
yourself, and it kind of leads you into a path of like
yeah.
helping others. So I was gonna ask, so how does your faith influence your approach to trauma therapy?
Oh, that's a really
Mm,
beautiful question. I like that
thank
question.
you.
I love the fact that you got your questions,
Yeah.
and they're like they're very unique because again, no one's
Yeah.
asked me about health.
Mm,
So I think like if I go back, I think it would be good if I can just go a little bit back, talk about
yes.
my
Mm-hmm.
journey to Islam, and then kind of like
Please,
how this is
because I
because
love that.
it then ties
Yeah.
in and I can explain it a little bit. So I'm a revert of
Mm-hmm.
about it's coming up to 14 years.
Mashallah.
And by the way, I never envisioned that I was going to be a counselor. Like that just was not the path that I
Really.
thought God had given to me.
Mm-hmm.
So before I became Muslim, if we go back to childhood, mum and dad, my mum and dad were never married. So I
Mm-hmm.
never saw like, stable family home. Dad had schizophrenia, which I've spoken about a lot. So
Mm.
with that, we were in survival because mum, or I say mum was in survival because mum was trying to survive.
Keep it together.
Yeah, dad's
Mm.
episodes. So dad, every so often, every certain amount of months, or maybe it just depends. You can't
Mm.
with schizophrenia, you can't predict when someone's going to have an episode.
Is that episode called psychosis? Is it like a
Um,
psychosis?
it depends. It depends because
Mm.
it just depends on how far it goes. So sometimes it can result in kind of like the seeing things, like
Mm.
visualizing stuff that's not there, or
Mm.
hearing things, or sometimes it can just involve just thinking something's happening or just getting very paranoid. So he's
Mm.
paranoid
Paranoia. Mm.
schizophrenic, right? So every episode would be different,
Mm-hmm.
but every episode was very scary.
Mm.
So where my dad was effectively on the roads, he was also, involved in that lifestyle as well
Okay.
as that. So it's like if he then had an episode and he starts moving crazy,
Mm.
you don't want to be around someone like that. So we
Mm.
would end up having. I think I was saying the other day, I was trying to figure out how many times I moved. I think I moved about 10 different times. Now, some of it was to do with him, and
Mm-hmm.
some of it was just, you're in social housing, you've got to move out of there, you're private, and then, so on and so forth. So,
And
go,
people don't realize how difficult moving
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, stability comes with a stable home. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
really think that stability with a household is so important, you know.
yeah.
But yeah.
No, it is because, you say broken home. Oh, yeah, you grew up in a broken
Mm.
home, but then you don't realize what comes with it. You don't
Mm.
realize that there's a certain amount of poverty, struggle, stress on the mother,
Mm.
um, and not having the dad in the household means that mum's stressed, mum's having to do the job of the mother and the father,
Yeah.
and so what can happen then is where's your emotional support? Where
Mm.
is the how you doing? Let me look after you. Let me,
Mm.
nurture you. Mum hasn't got time to nurture
Mm.
when she's trying to find, money,
Mm. She's
food.
in survival.
She's in survival.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like the
And
moving
the
around.
children are then vulnerable as well. I
Yeah,
find
yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
kids are then having to navigate life by themselves,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's
So,
and that's exactly it. And so when you were saying about
mm.
like the moving around, you're moving and you're having to make friends, then you
Mm.
have to move away, then you make friends again, and so on and so forth. And
Mm.
I was speaking to your sister outside, I was saying about being mixed race, you never really fit in.
Yeah.
You're almost kind of like, so imagine you're not even in, like, you're not like, okay, I'm just here, because I was in London, then I moved to
Mm-hmm.
Essex
Okay. Oh,
at 12.
yeah. Oh,
So
God.
I'm going from getting bullied by the black girls in London because I'm
Mm-hmm.
light and they don't like the fact that all the boys like me, to
Mm.
then moving to Essex, being out of school for 6 or 7 months, and then completely white school. And I'm
Yeah.
the only person of color, apart from one black boy, in the whole school. So
Mm.
I'm struggling with my identity and I'm just like, where do I fit in? And I did
Mm.
think at one point, I was like, man, it would just be easier if I was white because I'm in a you remember when you're at teenage ages,
Mm.
that's your prime age of finding yourself, and you really want to be like you fit in with your peers and
Mm.
have that connection. no dad, mum's in survival, and I'm just
Mm,
here
yeah.
trying to, like you said, trying to find
Mm,
yourself and trying to find who you are,
mm-hmm.
and just kind of lost.
Yeah, that is a struggle. I'll be honest. Even I live in Essex now,
Oh, do you?
and
Whereabouts?
in Harlow. So I
Okay,
live
you're
just,
nearish. Yeah,
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 not
yeah,
too far from
yeah,
London,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
my mum's, but then still a bit out. And even my daughters actually said to me, "Mum, I want to be white."
Subhanallah,
And my daughter's a
subhanallah.
dark skinned, beautiful little girl. And
Mm.
I just had to speak life
Yeah,
into
yeah,
her,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
girl, your skin is beautiful.
Mm.
So I completely understand. Like, that is, it's difficult. It's
Yeah,
really difficult when you don't see representation around you.
yeah,
But yeah, so you moved from house to
yeah,
house,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then what kind of,
So when I got to 12, obviously I was, like your daughter, that situation,
yeah,
she's probably, because Harlow is,
mm,
I'm in Brentwood, right? So that
yeah,
is predominantly white.
white, yeah,
Maybe nowadays it's not as much, but we're
yes,
still talking
yeah,
80 to 90% white. Back
yeah,
then it was like 95%.
percent, yeah.
And like you said, how old's your daughter?
She's 7.
Okay,
Yeah, so
subhanallah. So
in nursery, all she saw was, white
yeah,
people. And
subhanallah.
that was my biggest fear as well, because
Mm,
I, as a dark skinned black
yeah, yeah,
girl, and even me being of a darker complexion, it's hard to navigate in these spaces sometimes,
yeah,
especially because microaggressions do exist,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
colorism does exist. And sometimes it's hard when you're stating something, you're not being believed. They're like,
Mm,
oh, don't pull the race card and
yeah,
don't
yeah,
do
yeah,
this,
yeah.
but it's like, actually, no.
Yeah, that's
You are doing something
yeah.
that you're not realizing is actually a biased
Yeah.
or a microaggressive behavior.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it is hard, because I'm that mum that will pop up
Yeah.
at the school.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
that's
that's
the
how my mum
problem.
was. Yeah, that's how Mama Jill was. She
Yeah,
was, listen, it wasn't.
yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
you seen her, and
Yeah,
she don't play.
yeah,
So any little thing or any sort of, because I was always in fights, and from
mm,
infant school, I was like
yeah.
scuffing it out, and
Oh,
and I think it was like a defense mechanism for me, because
mm-hmm,
ultimately I'm trying to fit in. I'm going from, East London to North London, then I'm going from
mm,
North London, quay out in the middle of Essex. So, and I'm moving from school to school, and I'm moving from area to area. And
mm-hmm,
it's like, it's fight, flight, or freeze. You're either
yeah,
going to stand there and be bullied, or you're going to fight. And
yeah.
there's always other people there. But yeah, my mum would
Mm,
be at
that
the
was
school ready to walk.
yeah.
But I think, yeah, from when I got to about 12, that again, going back to that, it's like
Mm,
I am getting into problems,
mm,
because so eventually going from sort of skipping through to like 15, I got expelled. Why did I
mm,
get expelled? Somebody was calling me a nicknog, right? Somebody who I was friends with, that that I'd previously got along with. I'd been told that she'd gone behind my back, and she's calling me a nicknog. And of course, my response to that was what?
fight.
Fight.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
And the thing
because all
is,
the anger is
yeah,
just building,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you have no
Mm,
choice realistically, because,
mm,
like I said, you're either going to stand there and get bullied, you're either going to sort of fall into that fawn, which is like people pleasing,
mm,
or you're gonna fight. You can't get
mm,
away. You can't flee because you're at school. That's where you have to go.
mm.
So I got expelled, went to Peru.
Wow.
Yeah, got kicked out of Peru, went to another Peru. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hey, you was a naughty
I
girl.
was a naughty girl. Yes, I was very, very bad. And the thing is, when I tell people now,
Yeah,
they're like, look so innocent, and you say
I
this, that, and the
know.
other.
You had a
Um,
big heart.
yeah, I've
It's
always had a
always
bit.
kids that
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
big
yeah.
heart, that are emotional,
Yes, yes, yes.
but it's like, you keep pushing my buttons.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
slap you. I'm gonna fight you back.
This is the thing, isn't it? It's like, I want to love you, but you are
Mm,
testing me. So,
yeah.
what can I do, kind of thing. But yeah, so I got kicked out of Peru and then I went to another Peru. So literally what was happening is they were picking me up in a taxi every day, me on my ones.
Oh my
And I was going,
God.
oh, I can't even remember the area, but I was going further out into Essex
Oh God.
and I was going backwards and forwards. So I ended up, I think I did 3 GCSEs. I actually was quite surprised to have got a C in English, considering I didn't actually really go. But I always
Mm,
went to school. I quite enjoyed going into school and getting into
education.
yeah. I liked learning, but I liked being naughty as well. So I got in a
Mm,
lot of trouble, kept getting suspended and all of that. And then eventually, yeah, that situation happened. Um, and yeah, started getting into a bit of trouble. And then
mm,
I think it just got to a point where when you're in Peru, you're mixing with other naughty kids, right? So then you then find other naughty kids, and other naughty kids become your family. So
mm.
now I'm like,
Reliant.
mum's like, you're not going out, you're not going out. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going out? I'm going out. So when it got to 15, I can remember like her standing by the door, and because I'd run away so many times and the police kept going, like finding me, I'd be hiding under people's beds and all of that.
Oh,
I was doing that for probably a good few months. And then one day my mum, I remember like by my old back door, she was standing there. She was like, no, no, don't go, don't go. But
oh.
I was gone by then. Like I was totally like not
Mm,
connected to her at all. Like she had been obviously in survival. She was pretty much like I'd be upstairs and she'd be downstairs. Do you know what I
mm.
mean? And we're not connected
Connecting.
at all. So I
Mm,
can remember standing there and going, no, 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 don't go, don't go. And she was crying, and I didn't have any feeling or emotion towards it, and I just was like, just walked past her and went out. And then from then I was outside for a number of years, just you know, without
mm.
going into too much detail and
Yeah.
dishonoring myself and everything else. But I was outside,
Mm,
and so that was the first part of my like late teenage and early 20 years was spent kind of just around and about and getting into problems with people and
mm.
with the rest of the street kids and the street, adults as it progressed.
Yeah.
But and that's the sad part about it is when you come from that broken home, it doesn't just mean that you just have trauma and you're just a broken person.
Mm-hmm.
It can lead to so many other things and
Yeah.
so many other places
Mm,
that can end you up in other problems. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's not
But
just
I find like with that, even with myself, it's society, the way our society is set up as well. It's
mm,
not built to protect us.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
built to rectify the problem or
yeah,
to
yeah,
heal or aid the problem.
mm,
It's like it pushes you further into it.
yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So it makes me so sad. I remember I just cried and cried and cried because society pushes like a lot of negative things like
mm,
sex before marriage and zina and things like that.
mm,
And growing up, you think, oh, wow, everyone's doing it,
yeah, 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 of course,
like
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
mindset. And young girls who have done that are seriously in pain because
yeah,
of it.
man,
They're
subhanallah,
regretting it so
yeah, yeah,
much.
yeah,
And it's painful for them, but it was a lie sold to them.
of
It was like a
course,
complete illusion.
yeah, yeah,
And facing that consequence when you've grown up and you've learned
mm,
the real ramifications of these things and the
yeah,
spiritual side of these things
yeah,
and everything, it just makes you, it's so
it is,
heartbreaking,
it is, it is,
and that's why I think it's people shouldn't judge
yeah,
people when they've grown up
yeah,
in these situations, because it's society's not helping.
no, no, no,
we don't
no,
we don't live in a Muslim society where it protects the girls and boys.
yeah,
We live in a society where it's freedom, free for all. Just
yeah.
do what you want to do,
And that's exactly how I was brought up,
mm,
and I didn't know any different.
yeah.
And like you said, we shouldn't judge because there's so many young girls that that's all they knew.
Mm,
So imagine being, a little girl whose brain isn't fully developed.
yeah.
And, at my school, there was a lot that was going on. And I was quite like innocent in that sense. Like I wasn't really about boys for me at that part of my life.
Yeah.
It was more about having fun and just I was a bit, being a bit crazy. But
Mm.
from a very early age, you were seeing young girls doing the
Yeah.
most with
Yeah.
their peers.
Yeah.
But the thing is, nobody sat and said, oh, this is wrong, or
Mm.
we shouldn't be living, or respect yourself and things like
Mhm.
that. There was none of that messaging coming through.
Yeah.
And there wasn't like we have now social media
Mhm.
where you can listen to your favorite YouTuber or your favorite podcast person,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're like telling you, look, self-love, self-respect.
Mhm.
There was none of that.
No, there wasn't. Actually, in school, uh, the kids used to call me Pastor Amira.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
They used
Pastor.
to call me Pastor Amira because anytime like girls would do stuff with boys, I'd be like, "You lot mad? Like, why are you guys doing this
Yeah, yeah.
before marriage? You lot are tap." I
Okay.
used to just say stuff like this, but
Did you have the Islamic,
no, it was just more like, yes, my mum would tell me, but it
Yeah.
would be like, no, they're
Yeah,
gonna,
but
you know,
that having a mum
yeah,
that tells you that these
mm-hmm,
things are wrong,
yeah,
and that gives you a foundation, even though because as you're saying it, you're kind of saying,
mm,
oh yeah, my mum would tell me, but
mm,
imagine you grow up with a mum that just for whatever reason doesn't tell you that,
yeah,
because it's just not the way that
brought
they've
up themselves,
well,
yeah,
well, my mum may have been brought up by that, but
mm,
she wasn't like that herself, like in terms
yeah,
of that wasn't the important questions, whereas
mm-hmm,
Islam teaches the women to teach your children and so on and so forth. So
mm,
it's very significant, right, to have a
yeah,
mum to speak that into you. And it shows
true,
that because now you're going into school
yeah.
as
I was
Pastor
just
Amira,
regurgitating.
and you're speaking from your mum's perspective, and
Yeah,
you're not looking at it like it's normal because it's
yeah,
being taught to you this is not normal.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, I still had my struggles like
Yeah,
growing
yeah,
up,
yeah, of course, of
but at
course.
those tender ages of like 13, 14,
Yeah.
15, I wasn't interested in that. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
very much tomboy, like
yeah, yeah.
fighting and stuff like that. But so, how did you get to Islam?
Mm. So that's a good question. So imagine like, all my 20s has gone past and I'm still, I'm out partying and living that kind of lifestyle. And again, this is normal for even for a lot of
Mm,
girls now. Like now there's a lot of the BBLs and the lips and all of that
yeah,
extra stuff. There wasn't really any of that in, I say, my
no.
day, because we're talking about
Yeah.
the early 2000s and early 2000, yeah, sort of
Mhm.
like mid 2000s and things like that.
Mhm.
There wasn't so much of the image thing,
No, they
but you
were.
were still like, you say like bait, who, all the kind of
Yeah, yeah.
people that know one another from the
Yeah.
different areas, and you'd be on like this, what you say, like the raving scene and things like that.
Mhm.
So from a young age, I would always like write songs and poetry. Weirdly, that was like my creative outlet, right?
Wow.
So I started MCing from probably
I'm
like
not gonna lie, I can see that.
I see them looking at them
Yeah, I
like
can see
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I was
Yeah.
like I was into like my MC and like garage and all that
You
kind of
probably
thing.
was hard.
No, listen, and I wasn't really into like rap music and stuff.
Mm,
Like even though like my mum was like soul, R&B, reggae, and everything
yeah.
else, but I never really got into like the rap side of things.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it was like it started to become a bit more trendy. So I
Mm,
started like kind of like forcing myself into it, and I kind of started
R&B.
getting into it, like the rap
Mm,
side and everything else, like hip hop
mhm.
in the UK. And I knew quite a few different guys that were into it and stuff. So I was like, do you know what? I had a plan in my head.
Mhm.
I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna get into this. Like I'm
Mhm.
gonna start taking this seriously, because I
Yeah.
go to this studio and that studio, and write a few bars and do a few songs and stuff. But
Mhm.
then I just got like waylaid because I was more interested in partying.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So I kind of had the intention at this point. I was like, right, I'm gonna start writing and I'm gonna start rapping now, like
Mhm.
seriously. And there was this group, like I say group because you don't really call, I don't, what do
Yeah,
we call them,
yeah.
like
It's
the man them, like I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know, like I don't know how to even refer to them. What do you refer to them
The
as?
man them.
The man them, like the man. There's a couple of these guys, and
Yeah.
we started communicating on Facebook,
Mhm.
and then it just transpired that like, yeah, like I'm gonna write a 16 bar to go on. They're gonna do a remix of this particular like tune or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've written it, I've done it, and then I didn't know that they were Muslim because obviously, like, I don't even know what a Muslim is, babe. Like, I grew up in
Yeah.
Essex. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Wow.
So I don't. There's no Muslims. There's not
Mhm.
even anyone of color, let alone a Muslim. So
Wow.
even though I started like hanging around in my dad's area in East London,
Mhm.
I again. There's not like South London, you've got this culture of a lot of reverts, right? And
Mm.
and Northwest. In East London, it's not, I mean, back then it wasn't
Yeah,
a
it
big
wasn't
thing.
like that. Yeah.
So again, you wouldn't really see, and if you did see the Muslims who were around those circles of people,
Mhm.
they wouldn't be practicing or anything. So there'd be
Yeah.
no like inshallah. Like South, it's quite trendy.
Yeah.
East, it definitely wasn't.
It wasn't. Yeah, no, definitely.
So these brothers, they started giving me dawah, didn't they? SubhanAllah. So they started talking about Islam, and you know, they were one of them was comparing. There was two of them. One of them was comparing Christianity. I can remember a light bulb moment when I
Mhm.
was thinking to myself, "Whoa, that makes sense." And what
Mm.
intrigued me is that they were rappers. They were, you know, doing other things,
But yet,
but yet they had a religion. And I
yeah.
didn't grow up with religion in my household. My mum actually said to me the other day when I was doing another podcast, because I
Mhm.
said to her, she came in because we was at her house doing it.
Mhm.
And I said, Mum, why did you not teach us religion? She said, because I grew up having to go to church and having to go to Sunday school and all these things.
Mm.
And I didn't like it. So I wanted you guys to choose for yourself.
For yourself. Wow.
So there was no mention of God. There was no, like, we didn't do anything. Like, we did the Christmas and everything else
Mhm.
and the Easter, but that was presents
That
and
was
chocolate.
it.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? That wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, you know, praying to.
Spirituality or anything
Exactly,
like that. Yeah.
exactly. So I had no familiarity with it. So brothers comparing Christianity. I knew
Mm.
about Christianity. I wasn't a
Mhm.
Christian, but I knew about it.
Mm.
And it just made sense, babe. I don't know, like I don't
Just
know what,
clicked.
something just clicked, and I feel like Allah lifted the veil at that point, and I
Subhanallah.
just was so open to it. And I remember the other brother, we literally just used to randomly meet up somewhere.
Mm.
Like it's so weird when I think back, like, and I think he was trying to protect me at that point. Like he didn't want to
Mm.
be alone with me and things like that. So we just meet in the car or meet somewhere,
Mm.
and I just ask questions,
Wow.
and he'd just tell me about, you know, the questions. Then one day he said, so in between that, my dad got stabbed.
Oh.
So as I said, he was active and in that lifestyle. So someone went in, you know, pretended to be someone else or something like that, and yeah, they tried to obviously rob him or whatever. And yeah, and again, him being schizophrenic didn't end well, because he's not,
Mm.
you know, a normal person. You know, imagine someone comes in and they're trying to stab
Mm.
you. You're going to be like, all right, take whatever
Yeah,
and whatever.
yeah.
He's like
Oh.
ready to fight back, so they keep doing it. They did legs, arms, and then the heart.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I got a call. I wasn't even in contact with him. Go down to your dad's. When I got down there, there's police tape everywhere. Went to the hospital, and
My
that
goodness, gosh.
just before I accepted Islam,
Mhm.
when I'd gone to the hospital, the next time I went there, they no, sorry, when I got there, the doctor had changed over, and they said to him, they said to the other doctor, "Have you checked his heart?" They went, "No, no, no, he's fine, like he's awake and whatever." And I went, "No, no, no, you got to check his heart."
Oh
And he
god.
was bleeding internally in his heart. So if they hadn't have checked it, then he would have internally bled to death. And what I love about that,
Did he survive
looking
that?
back, is he survived and he took his
Subhanallah.
shahada. Allah have mercy on him. Yeah, after me.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. And I
Wow.
always say this because
MashaAllah.
I think that was the point there where Allah guided me. Just I'll tell you a little bit after, but also
Yeah.
imagine he would have died. I wouldn't have
Um,
taken my shahada, and neither would he.
wow.
Rahmatullah. Yeah.
Subhanallah. Allah rahmu.
I
That's
mean.
giving me
Yeah.
goosebumps.
It's crazy because like my dad, like even so anyway, I've gone home that night and I'm crying. I wasn't in contact with him either, so that was another thing.
Mm,
I had to keep taking breaks because when he'd have his episodes, he'd accuse me of things. Like it would be like, "You stole money from me. You're
yeah.
plotting to. You've been calling the police on me. This, that, the other." and it would get really dark, babe. Like,
I think that's quite common with
yeah,
this with that disorder, isn't it?
yes, yeah. It would.
It's really heavy.
It's really really heavy because sometimes because I used to live with him, and we're
Mm,
talking like hours, babe, like
yeah.
4-5 hours of just shouting. I'd lock myself in. It was only a one-bedroom flat, by the way, and
Mm,
I'm in his room, which was my room, and he's in the other room. Sometimes he's got the music on, and he's like just shouting for
wow.
hours, and then he'd be like, "Do you want some breakfast?" So
Mm,
sometimes it was every day, and in the earlier part of my life, it was like he would be okay for a long time, then he'd have an episode, then he'd be okay for a long time,
mm,
and then it changed to like he wouldn't be okay in the day, the first part of the day, and then the end part, like in the evening or
it'll
like
be
later on,
okay.
he'll be okay again. So it was a
Wow.
lot of confusion, a lot to take in. But anyway, went home, cried and cried and cried. Remember, I know about Islam now.
Mm-hmm.
I've now like I'm like God is in my life a little bit now. Like this is the
Mm,
first time.
wow.
So I like was looking around and tried to read the Quran, but I don't know religion. So I'm looking at the book like, what is this? What's this? It's not like I grew up reading the Bible and it was kind of similar. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember an uncle saying to me that, Allah says, kun fayakun, be and it
Yeah.
is.
Mm,
And all you've got to do is just ask Allah,
mm-hmm.
and Allah can just has the power
Make
to
it.
do,
Yeah.
yeah, all things. So I've like looked up, that's how ignorant I am. Like I
Yeah.
don't know like how you even do salah, let alone how you make dua or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like looked up and I said, "Oh Allah, please take the pain away." And then I felt, this warm feeling, and it's like it started in my feet, and it just like traveled all the way up my body,
Allah.
and then like went into my heart. And
Allah.
it was just, I literally just like the tears just stopped rolling, and I just, it just
Wow.
felt like my heart
Strength.
lifted. Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
something just like a warm, like almost like a hug,
Hug.
but
Yeah.
just like spiritually, really,
Subhanallah.
Allah was like letting me know, like for real, like
Mm-hmm.
this is me.
Wow. That's why they really say it's Allah who guides.
Yeah, yeah,
It's only Allah who guides. Like, oh, I just sometimes it bugs me
yeah.
out, but I understand it because I have so many uncles who are reverts.
Oh, subhanallah.
And a lot of them have said, when they took their Shahada, it's like something lifted off of them,
Yeah, that, yeah, yeah.
like
That's,
a
I relate to
relief,
that.
or, like it felt heavy at the time
Yeah,
as
excuse
well.
me.
One of my uncles said he actually had a bad headache after, like just the pressure or
Yeah,
something
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
lifted. So he felt quite lightheaded, kind of
yeah.
headachy.
I felt like
Yeah. So it's like a physical thing as well as
physical
a
thing.
spiritual
Yeah.
thing.
I think it depends as well on
Yeah.
the kind of person you are.
Mm,
I'm a very, like you said, like emotionally led, kinesthetic person.
mm,
So I'm really like
deep.
feelings and deep
That's
and
me.
depth, and so
Oh,
I
I
believe
carry
a
the
lot.
weight of the world.
Yeah,
I feel things so
so
deeply and
deeply.
I experience things in detail. Like
Mm,
it's crazy. Yeah.
subhanallah. And so
Subhanallah.
and I do think that
Yeah.
Allah, like, well, it's not think, but Allah
Yeah.
guides you how you
Mhm.
need to be guided. Like when
Yeah.
I hear other people's story,
Mhm.
like my friend Amina that I used to do the podcast with, you probably
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
Amina.
Yeah.
She's a very visual person, and
Mhm.
when she explained her story, it was like a light and Allah's light and everything else, which really tied in
Subhanallah.
with the fact that she's a visual person.
Yeah.
So I think if you're, a very emotionally, very touchy feely person like
Mhm.
myself, like Allah guided me, like there was no turning back there.
No.
Like there was no
Yeah.
denying that Islam was the truth. Like Allah
Subhanallah.
literally showed me, look here, here's
Yeah.
the warmth,
It's like
and
it's customized to each person.
wallahi, that's the word,
Yeah,
customized.
it's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
customized. Like you needed that hug in that
Yes,
moment,
yes, yes,
you
yes,
know.
yeah.
Subhanallah. So when you reverted
Mm.
to Islam, like how was your journey? And how did your dad revert as well? Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah.
need to know that
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
wow.
So I took my Shahada, like after that, I was like, yeah, I need to take my Shahada. And I started getting in a bit of a panic. I was like, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
die as a Muslim.
Mm,
The brother took me to Green
as a
Street
non-Muslim.
as a non-Muslim,
Yep,
stuff Allah.
it's okay.
The brother took me to
Mm-hmm.
Green Street. He didn't tell me where he was taking me, but I got
Mm-hmm.
like, like the sock hijab that you just pull over.
Yeah, the egghead one.
Oh my God. I remember looking back at that and being like,
Yeah, my head was looking mad in that
yeah,
one
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Because you know you got. As I said, I was saying the other day when my hijab was all the way back, I was like, nah, man. Like sometimes those jersey hijabs be doing that egghead vibe as well. Like it's
Yes. Oh,
just,
I'm still discovering what styles of hijab suits me
yeah,
because
mashallah, it looks
I feel
beautiful
like
on you though.
loose suits me. If
Like,
the tighter I put it, the more my cheeks pop
mhm.
out.
Oh, bless you. But it does, it
Yeah,
really suits you.
she said, so do you. It
Allah
looks
Mubarak.
like effortless. I love this style. I might need a tutorial
Yeah, yeah,
after.
yeah. We do. Yeah,
Yeah,
we swap styles, girl.
honestly,
We do
I
this.
love it. So your dad, how did he?
Yeah. He took me. I went and I took my Shahada.
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah, and that feeling that I was just going to touch on, that feeling of
Mm,
relief, it
yeah,
was literally like I felt, you know, they say like, oh, you're like a newborn baby.
yeah.
I did feel that lightness.
Wow,
And the brother said to me, I never forget this, we're sitting next to each other in the car, and he went, I can feel the angels around you. And I was
wow.
crying, and it was different. Like it was like, I can't explain it, man. It was like Allah had saved me.
Yeah,
Like, subhanallah.
don't, because I don't want to do.
Yeah, like that's how I felt. Like, wow, that you this is what all this was for. So you could
Mm,
grab me here, and I never wrote that.
oh.
I never did that 16 bar either. That went out the window. Oh,
I'm
bless
actually
you.
the worst. Oh God, yeah.
Oh, bless
I,
you.
child, doing this on camera.
Oh, no, no, no. But tears are real, man.
I know.
That's what it is.
I'm actually the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny because I was telling my story again the other day, and you know, my friend Kalila, she started crying. I'm thinking, you've heard this story so
I
many
know.
times, but it's just sometimes it's just like I don't know, like it's real, like it's a real,
Yeah,
real thing. Like,
it
and even
is.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, even I can't. Like, how did I get here? Like, even sometimes I'm like in a state of like disbelief myself, like not
Yeah.
literal disbelief, but like,
Yeah.
wow, is this really real? Is this really like my life now?
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
I
Bless
just
you.
find it. Do you know what it is when you said like Allah saved me?
Mm.
Oh God, I never thought I would do this.
Oh, bless you.
Oh, it's just His mercy.
Mm.
Allah's so
Give me a
merciful.
hand. Bless you.
Wallah, and I just find it to
Yeah, it
be one
is.
of the most beautiful things because even us, like some people who are born Muslim, like I find you have to find Islam,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and be in constant conversation
yeah.
with Allah and be have that connection with Allah all the time. And
Mm.
it just shows you that Allah is continually guiding and
Yeah,
protecting you,
yeah,
even if you
yeah.
don't see it.
See it, yeah.
Because from you to you telling me your story, um, I just feel like you went through everything you went through
Mm.
just so that you can be here today to have an impact
I know,
and to
subhanAllah.
save somebody else,
Mm.
you know, and that just full circle moment
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
just
It's deep.
so
It's so
mind
deep.
blowing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so deep. Yeah.
It's even,
I can't believe that.
yeah. No,
Oh,
even for me, it's shocking because
yeah.
wallahi, when I first told my story, because I used to get asked a lot, oh, how did you revert? How did you revert?
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I was thinking, why do they want to know how? I didn't get it. I didn't understand
Mm.
it because I just thought, well, I'm on my path and I'm Muslim and whatever. And then when I first told it, like online,
Hmm.
because I wasn't always online, I've only been online for a few years.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I did it on a few platforms, and it went, you know, quite big, quite a lot of people. I was just like, when I read some of the comments, I gasped.
Yeah. Wow.
I didn't even think it was that much of a big. I didn't even
Yeah.
see my story as that much of a big
Big
thing, or
deal. Yeah.
look at it. And now, when I look back, it's changed my like my way of looking at it as well. Like,
Yeah.
no, Aisha, you went through some, like, Allah really took you out of, but I didn't even see it. So it's even
Yeah.
helped me to tell my
Oh,
own story, which is a
yeah.
weird way
Honestly.
of like looking at it. But
Yeah. Because I think it can even help those who are scared to
yeah,
revert to
yeah,
Islam, you
yeah,
know, like
yeah,
those who are still on the fence, who are like, do I or don't I? And
yeah.
what benefit can this
Mm.
have on my life? But we can see the benefit it's had on your life. You know,
Mm.
you're glowing, mashallah.
That's the suntan.
Yeah. You know, and honestly, it's just even the way you, because obviously we have our struggles, you
Mm.
know, and this will come into your profession and what you do,
Mhm, mhm.
but like how you're keeping positive, how you're helping
Mm.
others, and all of this. I'm so intrigued and I want to
Mm.
learn more about it.
Yeah.
But how your dad?
Yeah. I was gonna say, let's go back.
Because
So
I'm not gonna give up on it.
this is a interesting one as well.
Yeah.
Like my dad was in prison. My dad spent about half my
Hmm.
life in prison.
Wow.
So I think it was about 18-ish years
Yeah.
altogether. Shows my age there.
Hmm.
Um, so I went up to visit him and I
Hmm.
was in an abaya. And subhanAllah, I was saying this the other day. I couldn't believe it myself. So there was another brother that lived upstairs above my dad.
Hmm.
I think he was Iranian or something like that. But he was on the visit as well. So we both went at the same time because we knew each other. But he
Hmm.
was like a lot younger than my dad. But he just, so we both went, I went separately to him.
Hmm.
But my dad was like, oh yeah, you might as well come up there. I can't remember if he was on remand or whatever. But anyway, both went together. So me and him, obviously I've gone up in a buyer for the first time. And my dad didn't actually say anything. He didn't say
But
like
he's like, what's going on
no,
here?
nothing. Like I just showed up and like
Yeah.
I'm just in an abaya now. And then but then that guy was Muslim, right? So we were
Hmm.
I say was Muslim.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're talking about Islam or whatever, and we're just having like normal conversations. This is on a prison visit, by the way. So
Hmm.
we're like, yeah. So we've left. And then the next time I went up, maybe a couple of weeks later, my dad was like, oh, I went into the mosque in the prison. And he said, I was outside, like just like looking around. I don't know how it's set up, but it was like I was
Hmm.
outside looking around and the
Yeah.
brothers came over. They was excited, like, oh, like, because you know how it is,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially like you got a lot of time on your hands or
Yeah.
whatever. So then they gave him some dawah. And he was like,
Mm.
yeah. And then I read this thing and I was like, what, Shahada? And I was like, what, you're Muslim? And he was like, yeah. And he was smiling, subhanAllah.
Wow.
So I didn't even
Wow.
give him dawah like that. I just went up on a visit with my abaya. Me
Hmm.
and the brother were talking about certain things to do with Islam. It wasn't like heavy or,
Hmm.
Dad, read this book or
Yeah. Yeah.
he just saw me and he just was intrigued, I guess. Like my daughter's gone from, I used to rave with my dad. Yeah, we used to go out. We used to go out partying. My dad used to buy bottles of like champagne. Like we was really like it was really like that. So
Mm.
like I think maybe he thought I don't know. I never really
Mm.
asked him. Like maybe he thought, oh, how come she's
Going religious.
yeah? Like what happened
Mm.
there? So that guy that was on the visit, he actually apostated. Well, I
Wow.
say, is it apostated? Yeah, he
Yeah.
apostated and became Christian randomly years later. Started writing my dad letters
To try and
to
get
try
him.
and get him to like and I called him one day and I said, brother, respectfully, like
Mm.
my journey, and he went, look, I'm sorry, I just you know Jesus is the savior type
Yeah.
vibe. And I was
Okay.
like, yeah, but you know that I've come
Hmm.
from where I've come from. And then I said, please don't do that again, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And my dad wasn't interested anyway, alhamdulillah. And
Yeah.
then he died about 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's three
Mm.
years subhanallah. So again with schizophrenia, as you get over sort of 50, they say like
Hmm.
mental health disorders,
Yeah.
they die down a little bit, so they're not as like up and down.
Mm.
But he had this notion that because he had high blood pressure and high cholesterol, but
Mm.
in his mind he could cure himself without taking his medication. And
Oh.
he was reading this book saying, I think if water can heal, and he believed that he could cure himself with water. And I remember saying to him one day in his front room, I goes, Dad, you're going to die. Like, you have to take your medication. He was going for appointments. It was like your blood vessel that leads to your heart is like ruptured a little bit or something like that.
Mm.
And one day, he died. His aorta burst and he died.
Oh,
And the
he had
cause
an
of death,
aneurysm.
yeah. Cause of death was not taking blood pressure tablets and cholesterol. But qadar Allah, alhamdulillah,
Qadar-ullah,
it was his time. And I just pray that Allah forgives him for what he couldn't control,
yeah.
and
Mm.
and not that he doesn't get taken into account
Mm.
for
Yeah.
what he wasn't
No, of
able
course
to,
not. Yeah.
because it is
They say مغفور al-qalam, like because of his mental health
yeah,
and stuff, Allah doesn't
yeah.
hold those people accountable for some of
Mm.
their actions because they're not in the right
Right
frame
state.
of
Yeah,
mind,
yeah, yeah.
Allah's merciful. But how are you dealing with that grief? And did your dad pass in 2020?
I think it's 2020. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 2020. Yeah,
my
yeah.
dad also passed in 2020.
Mm.
Yeah, so
So
how are you? Yeah, Allah yarhamu. But
I
how
mean,
are you dealing with that grief? Like,
it's a difficult one because my dad was difficult, and because of his mental health.
mm-hmm,
And at the time when he died, because I got the phone call, my cousin was like, "Have you heard?" And she was, "Sit down." I sat down. She was like,
mm-hmm,
"Dad's died," and I just felt my heart break.
mm,
And I didn't even expect to feel like that, babe, because like I didn't really have that father
mm,
daughter bond. Like, yes, we used to go out together, and yes, but he was abusive. Do you know what I mean? It was like torture at times,
mm,
and I was his only child, so I got the brunt of it all the time, and my
mm.
mum before me or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, so that natural feeling, I say, like the father wound that a lot of girls have that don't have the emotional connection with the dad,
yeah,
and your dad is your first love ultimately, even if he isn't mentally, emotionally,
the
or
best.
physically present.
Yeah,
He's your first love. So like when he I felt that the heartbreak was different, subhanallah.
Allah,
um and I wasn't really, I kind of, in my mind, Allah prepared me that he was going to die.
yeah.
But I wasn't prepared to feel like that. So I think I
Mm,
was shocked because I've studied the models of grief. I've worked in bereavement. I know, so I
yeah.
was, I had it all like to know what it was. But even then, I was questioning, "Whoa, am I supposed to?" Because I didn't expect it.
Mm,
Because your connection, your attachment with your mother and father
mm,
is one that's different, even if you don't have a positive,
100%.
healthy relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
So that came as a shock. I was
Because
like,
they're part of you.
they're in your
You're made up.
DNA.
Yeah, you're made up of
Subhanallah.
them.
Yeah.
Literally, you're made up of them. Your cells,
Yeah.
your blood.
Blood, everything.
We're one. It's
It's
yeah,
deep. It's deep. I was, I was like, wow, this is peak.
yeah.
Like,
Sorry.
it's
I
mad. Yeah.
have to laugh, otherwise I'm just gonna be
Yeah.
crying
Crying the whole
this whole
time.
episode. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
okay. It's a lot of triggering subjects. A lot of these
yeah.
subjects are, triggering.
Mm,
For me, like my dad is. It's a triggering subject. It wasn't always nice, but I really am so happy he reverted.
mm-hmm.
Because
Oh,
he suffered. Imagine, he suffered as a child. His dad was abusive. His mum
yeah.
had schizophrenia as well. She
Oh,
was paranoid schizophrenic as well. I remember like my aunties bought her food, and I remember her like saying, "No, don't trust them," and this and that and the other.
mm,
And I won't go too much into the family stuff, but
yeah.
imagine like how much he suffered. Being in prison for so long, and
Mm.
being,
You
having,
realize that he was just a boy
trying to
himself,
survive. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it makes him a person. Do you
Yes,
know what I
yes, yeah. It
mean?
humanizes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
as kids, we just think that's my dad.
Mm,
This is the responsibility he
yeah.
has
You want,
towards me,
yeah.
you know.
Mm,
But then when you look into it in hindsight, like his struggles,
yeah,
his family history, his mental health,
yeah.
illness, and all of these things, it makes him
It
human.
does, it does.
Yeah,
And I learnt that in therapy. It's good that you said that, because
yeah.
that's something I learnt in my own therapy, especially with my mum, about,
Mm.
because relationship with my mum and stuff
Oops.
was obviously strained,
Yeah,
evidently. And one thing, because from being a Muslim, we have to keep the ties of kinship.
yeah,
And that was one thing that I did with my dad, even though he was a lot to deal with at times. I'm really grateful that I was Muslim and I did keep those ties, because, like I said, when he
alhamdulillah.
got stabbed, we wasn't in contact. And a lot of the time, I was just in contact with him just for the sake of Allah. I
Yeah,
would go and visit him just for the sake of Allah. I was scared. Like, it wasn't a nice, I'd have anxiety
before, yeah.
going into his presence, and I would always
Mm,
be worrying, "Oh, is he going to be like this today?" And I'd look out for the sign. I'm hyper vigilant in his
mm,
presence. And so, but then imagine I didn't keep the contact with him. How would I feel now? Now that I've
Mm.
learned all of the things that I've learned, now that I've put him in aside as a human,
Yeah.
I'd be living with regret and like, oh, I should have done. I didn't have any of that. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I find that um those strenuous relationships
Mm.
before the passing, it's like Allah facilitates
Yes. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
sort of sakina,
Yeah.
peace
Wallahi,
between
yeah.
and you and that person. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that that
Definitely
is a
feel like
big
that.
part of the healing process.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should move on from this
Yeah.
before we start both crying up and down this
Mm.
stage, because I was not prepared for this.
Oh.
But I think that story is just so beautiful, wallah. And may Allah have mercy on him and grant
Ameen.
him the highest ranks of
Ameen.
Jannah,
Ameen.
inshallah, ya Rab. But so, what would you say? I'm going to ask you some of the questions now. But how would you how do you address some of your religious or spiritual aspects of healing with your clients?
Mm. So that's another good question. I love these
I'm
questions,
gonna
man.
keep them
Yeah, yeah,
coming.
yeah. So when I've obviously reverted and everything, I've like I haven't really been doing anything. I'm
Mm,
just in dead end jobs, and I'm kind of like thinking a bit more about my life, like looking forward as a Muslim,
mm-hmm.
right? So going from YOLO, you only live once,
Yeah.
live for the day, and tomorrow's never promised. And I believed when you die, that's
Mm,
it, right? That was my
mm,
belief system because I was an atheist. That's
yeah.
some people say, oh, you wasn't, you what? Well, I didn't believe in God, so whatever you
Mm,
want to frame
yeah.
it as that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so going into, I'm like, oh, what do I want to do? How do I want to like, you
Mm,
know, how do I want to live my life? So I'm praying istikhara, not as I've made a decision, but Allah make
it's
a
okay.
decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like where should I go?
Mm-hmm.
Then I got someone contacted me about Muslim bereavement support, like working for them as a volunteer. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I think maybe I should do some counselling.
Mm,
So to cut a very long story short, in the very early stages of my transition to Islam, I started training as a counsellor. Then I went in to do, I got onto a degree, but I left the degree for the sake of Allah. So the
mm,
degree was riba, and
oh,
I strongly follow the opinion. There
yeah.
is no interest, there is no degree, you can't go into it,
Yeah. I
you know.
didn't know.
Yeah,
So when I went to uni, I honestly was so ignorant
yeah, yeah, yeah.
of the fact that there was interest on my
Yeah.
student loan.
Bless
Allah,
you.
I didn't know until
That's-
my sister was like, "Yeah, there's interest."
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
"What?
yeah.
How?
Yeah,
It's
subhanallah.
student loan." I
Yeah.
thought this is something that they give you. It's
y-
just part of
If part
the
of the thing, yeah.
government. That's it. I
Yeah.
didn't realize this is interest on
Haram.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, wow.
But again, like when you don't know something, my
Yeah.
teacher was saying this morning, there's certain things that you do that if you don't know that you're doing it, if you're doing it out of ignorance,
Yeah.
because someone asked a question like, how can you not do or do something out of ignorance?
Mm,
I can't remember what it is. What do you mean? Like people grow up not knowing. Just because
exactly.
we're in a student of knowledge setting with a teacher,
Yeah.
a lot of people just grow up thinking this
Mm-hmm.
is halal or this is allowed, or
Yeah.
you don't have the understanding and the knowledge to know that this isn't. So obviously I did.
Yeah.
And so I remember someone sending me, because this was my turning, because I had an imam saying to me, oh, it's need for necessity, meaning
Yeah.
there's certain rulings and there's certain sheikhs that will say, oh yeah, if you want to do it because of this, or oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't fall under the same
To earn a
ruling.
living in your
La,
life.
la, la,
Yeah.
la. No,
No.
no, no. Like,
Mm.
and Allah says in the Quran, would you like to come to fight me? Like,
Yeah.
you're Allah
It's
is
like you're
waging
waging war on
war
Allah.
on
Yeah.
Allah. Like,
Astaghfirullah al-Azim.
like just to do a counseling. But for me, it
Mm.
was very conflicting
Yeah.
because I'm coming from street life,
Mm-hmm.
not having any ambition, not having any
Mm-hmm.
drive goals, don't really think too much of myself, just starting to build up my self worth and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, the idea of doing a degree for me, I'm
Mm.
thinking I've made it. You know what I mean? I'm really
Yeah.
like setting
Yeah.
my self
Your
worth on
path.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I had to give it up.
Wow.
So I gave it up for Yeah, I gave it up for a long time, for many years actually,
Mhm.
until I could financially afford to pay for the course.
Mhm.
And then, I had to do it, it was, the westernized framework and everything
Yeah.
else, BACP and all of that, finished that. And then I worked for the NHS. So I was just doing,
Wow.
your general standard kind of 6 sessions and 12 sessions throughout my
Oh,
training and stuff,
okay. So
which was good, which was honestly
yeah, it
really
must
good.
have been amazing
It
because
was.
it's like they assign somebody to you each time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They assign, and you're mostly dealing with like depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
little bit of trauma. Although you
Yeah.
can't really go into trauma in that space of time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, how I started tying in Islam to it,
Mhm.
because in the beginning I'm working with non-Muslims mainly,
Yeah.
so I went on to BetterHelp, and it's like, it's an Americanized system. I don't want to start dissing BetterHelp, but it it's not the best system, but the NHS framework's really good.
Mm.
And my program is kind of like combined into the NHS, because I've seen what benefits you can get in not so much the 6 sessions but the 12 sessions,
Yeah.
and how much growth can happen with somebody that's traumatized.
Yeah.
But I think when you have a foundation of Islam and you're
Mhm.
connected to Allah, I think that always needs to be the starting blocks, where the starting blocks lie, because we can implement all of the techniques from counseling, the grounding techniques, the you're writing down your irrational thoughts, or whatever modality you're looking from.
Mhm.
But if you don't have a genuine connection with Allah, and you're not doing your salah, you're always going to feel lost.
Yes.
You're always, Allah says in the Quran, if you turn away from my remembrance, you will live a depressed life.
Yeah.
So I don't go into,
Dunker, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
In
don't go into
Aysha.
the spirituality and nafs, and I don't go deep into it.
Yeah.
It's just make sure you've got your connection with Allah. And each of us, um, saying this the other day, each of us build our iman, like strengthen our iman in different ways. So there's
Yeah.
no point me saying to you, oh, go and read Quran every day, or listen to lectures every day, or, do
Mm.
sunnah prayers. Or, yeah, these things do help. But
Mhm.
what really strengthens your iman? What is your real, for
Yeah.
me, it's like the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a revert thing, because a lot of us, we came in with this passion for knowledge and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. Um, and so if I just was to do some of the things and then leave off the gaining of the knowledge, I start to feel a bit of a weakness. Now,
Mm.
you could do everything if you're capable,
Yeah, it's
but
hard.
let's get started somewhere.
Yes.
You know, basic things like a bit of gratitude changes
Mm.
the mindset. They say the Alhamdulillah mindset,
Yeah.
where you go from complaining, moaning, what haven't I got, what is going wrong, to, okay, let's start to look at what, Allah says in the Quran, which of the favors of my Lord will you
I
deny?
don't know.
Man, just that one verse, let alone the whole Surah Ar-Rahman,
Honestly.
is enough to. So I think we need to not overdo it with the counseling and therapy and this and that, to the point where we're like, this is all we need. No, we need Allah first.
Yeah.
And that's definitely, and I don't push it into where I'm like a shaker, or I'm
Mm.
like
Yeah.
connect work out your nafs, your desires, and connect like this. I don't go into it like that.
Mhm.
I don't go into it like in a real spirituality way, but I
Mhm.
do encompass mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Meaning, soul meaning, let's work on your connection with Allah softly, gently. And it's you, in my
Mm.
counseling sessions, in my therapy sessions, I empower you to make the decisions of what you need to do next. I'm not a coach.
Yeah.
I like, I
I
don't
think
like
that's the
being confused
best
with the
type
coach.
of therapist,
Yeah.
counselor is not someone who does the work for you.
Yeah. No, no, no. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
I think if you allow, or if you're being allowed to do the work for yourself, that
Yeah.
helps you
Yeah.
to take accountability, to do all of these things. I think
Yes.
that's the best way. I think it's so helpful because I've
Yeah.
I've had therapy myself,
Okay.
because I suffer badly, or suffered and suffering, because it
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
kind of goes
Yeah. Yeah.
away with panic and anxiety disorder.
Oh, subhanallah.
Yeah, so I kind of developed it when I was 19,
Mm-hmm.
18, 19 years old, and I actually didn't know what that was at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
time,
yeah.
but I just remember having my first ever panic attack and
Okay.
thinking I'm dying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I'm
Mm,
screaming and I'm like falling on the floor. My lips are turning blue. And it
wow.
was just progressively getting so bad. And,
Mm,
you know, the ambulance worker was like, "You're having a panic attack."
mm,
And I was like, "What is that?
mm.
What's that? Do you have anxiety?" I don't know what that
That
is,
is, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So I struggled a lot with anxiety in my teens to like
Hmm,
my
hmm.
20s so badly. It got better,
Yeah,
but I never got the therapy because again,
it wasn't common.
yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't common, it wasn't the norm. But when I did finally get some CBT,
Mm-hmm,
um,
okay.
it
I'm,
was
I'm,
yeah.
CBT is, I do use a little bit of it, but
Mm,
I use more of somatic approach for trauma,
mm,
which I would say that anxiety is 99% of the time connected to
yeah,
a past traumatic event.
yeah,
And I think what CBT does is it deals with the here and now and the future. Because you've got the
yeah.
past, the present, and the future, like modalities, right?
Hmm.
But sometimes you can manage it. It's like taking a painkiller.
Yeah.
You manage it for the time being, but you've not dealt with the root
No,
cause.
100%.
And so that's why for me, I'm like,
Yeah.
CBT is not and actually every single one of my clients, well,
Hmm.
90% of my clients had CBT and it wasn't effective.
Yeah, it's not been effective because I'm still having to manage
Mm.
and navigate through it myself.
Yes,
And
yes.
like you said, I navigate a lot of it through Dean
Yeah,
and just doing certain things that help me
yeah,
to manage it.
yeah.
Otherwise, it is something that I really still struggle with. And
Mm.
maybe I need to go private because it was with NHS and
Yeah,
they just
yeah,
say,
yeah.
here's CBT.
And like I said,
Yeah.
may Allah make it easy for
I
you
mean,
and allow you
yeah.
to get the right support
I
because
mean,
it is important. And this is why I started coming out and because I was very hesitant about going into trauma. I was like, oh, I don't know, and should I? But I went on to
mm,
specialize in it because I knew what I had been through and I knew how effective
mm,
it was for me to have a therapist and a counselor. So I have both.
mm,
So a therapist or a coach, you can say coach in a sense of somatic coach,
yeah.
is one that deals with the emotions in the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is where trauma is stored. It's stored in the body. So when you're having those panics, it
Mm,
comes from something that would have happened
mm-hmm.
years ago when you're a child that needs to be released.
Yeah.
So this is where the somatic side comes into it.
Mm,
You can't talk your way out of that,
yeah.
right? You can't think your way out of it from a cognitive sense.
Yeah.
So I realized when I did my counseling training, there's a gap here. If I want to
Mm,
help people with trauma, I have to go into the body as well. I have to go
yeah.
somatic.
Wow.
So it's a lot deeper than a lot of people think. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a bit more education online about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have conversations with CBT therapists, I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, no, 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 because your cognitive brain is
mm,
different to your amygdala. And,
yeah.
where, what happens is, for example, you get triggered by something, you get panicky, and the front of your brain takes over. So
Yeah.
now you don't have the ability to act in
Mm,
a normal cognitive. So
mm.
how are you going to use cognitive behavioral
Yeah,
therapy
because
to think around it when you're
yeah.
triggered so much and
Mm,
then it starts to cause panic? And we're like, oh, breathing techniques. Okay, well, no, because you need to now
yeah.
you need to work on where did that come from and why.
Mm,
And a lot of people that have panic attacks and have anxiety, they were either bullied, they had, abuse,
mm,
molestation, domestic violence. There was a lot of reasons why people got to that point.
mm-hmm.
But usually the symptoms show up later on in life. So a
Yeah.
lot of my clients have been late 20s, early 30s, 40s. Now they're
Mm,
depressed, they're anxious, they're stuck,
mm-hmm.
suffering with low confidence
Mm-hmm.
in abusive marriages because the childhood
Yeah.
has a direct impact
Yeah.
on the here and now, which is a lot of people
That was
didn't know
me,
that.
literally. Because I was, as a child, I went through a lot of trauma.
Mm,
and bullying as in
Yeah.
primary school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went through trauma with bullying, a really strict dad as well.
Mm.
And then I just used to be so angry,
Yeah.
like so angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't talk about it at all
Mm.
with nobody. It was like very much inside kind of thing.
Mm.
And then boom, my first panic attack
But that's
hits
why,
me.
though, you've just
Yeah,
troubleshooted the reason why, because
yeah,
it's inside and it's not
mm,
being released. It
yeah.
needs to be
It
released
needed
in
to be
order.
released. Yeah.
And when it doesn't get released, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's called suppression. You're suppressing down
Yeah.
all of that pain, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what ultimately trauma is:
Mm,
pain.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Mm,
pain. You're pushing down that pain, and then if you don't release it in a in a way with support and
mm-hmm.
therapy, then it's going to come up in a very negative way. And
Yeah.
yours, subhanallah.
No, definitely. Even when you said like the front of the brain, like
Yeah.
it goes to the front of the brain, you can't be rational in those
Yes, exactly.
situations. I'll never forget in Bristol, I was like 21 or 22.
Mm.
I had a major panic attack, like in front of everyone in the street,
Mm.
hands turn blue. It's like a physical thing as
Yeah.
well. So
Well,
my body was physically
but what happens is,
mm,
because you start to breathe differently,
yeah,
what actually happens
yeah.
is you lose air to the
That's what
brain.
the
Yeah.
ambulance worker said to
That's what
me.
happens.
Because for the first time, and actually this changed
Mm.
how I was dealing with it. Because again, I still didn't have therapy at that time
Yeah.
or any counseling or anything like that. But when my lips were going blue, my hands were going blue. He was like hyper something, but
Mm.
he shouted at me, the
Oh.
ambulance worker. He was like, "You need to stop."
You need to breathe properly. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that kind of shocked me
Shocked you
back.
back to reality.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
reality. So
What was if you don't mind me asking, what was the
mm,
trigger at that point? Do you want to say, or?
I don't know. I think I was literally working. I was
Okay.
young. I was in Bristol. I was doing door to door sales
Oh
at
my
the
God, I did
time.
that. Oh my
And
gosh.
then I was just on the bus, and then I started feeling like my
Mm.
breathing. I think I was having obviously some thoughts or something
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
spiraling,
Yeah,
and then I just had a full blown panic attack.
yeah.
But again, the way I managed it again alone was I
Mm.
just started talking to myself. So
Okay.
anytime I was about to have a panic attack, I just start
Mhm.
talking to myself quite roughly. Just the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
the
yeah.
ambulance worker
I
did it,
did,
kind of
yeah.
like snap back.
Yeah.
It's like, you're fine, you're
Yeah.
okay. I had to literally tell myself that
Yeah.
quite toughly. And then that's
Mm.
how I kind of navigated it until I started going to the gym constantly every
Mhm,
single
mhm,
day. And that
mhm.
was releasing
Facing
some of
some of
this
it. Yeah.
tension. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was always so anxious. And
Mm.
yeah, it's crazy, that emotion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
is crazy. I still deal with it now, where I kind of feel anxious, but
Mhm, mhm,
it
mhm.
just manifests differently. I'm not, yeah, it manifests differently.
Mm. And it sounds like you've got like a level of control over it,
Yeah,
but the root issue is still there.
the root
Because
issue.
again, from the way that I work with
It's
my
even probably got
clients,
a bit more
yeah,
icing, a bit more seasoning
yeah,
on top.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's again, it's the longer it's there, it
Mm,
doesn't go away, but it can
yeah.
start to seep into other areas of the life
Mm-hmm.
of your life as well. But what I say with clients is, when we'll call it inner child work.
Mm-hmm.
We focus heavily on the feeling that you were feeling at the time. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I ask you logically now, what was going on? What was the feeling? You'd be like, oh, it was in my head, and I was thinking. Everybody thinks that you're thinking, but what was
Mm-hmm.
the feeling?
Mm-hmm.
This is where the key indicator is: what was the feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of like, can you think of a time recently when you felt like that?
Yeah,
Maybe a bit nearer. Then when was the earliest memory? And when you connect into that feeling long enough,
bruh.
something just comes up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that's when I, we go into inner
Wow,
child work, and the work is done there. And it's I've had a lot of it myself, a
wow.
lot of it.
Yeah.
um Shout out to my therapist,
Yeah,
Fabian.
man. Counselors and
Yeah,
therapists
yeah,
need
yeah.
therapy
I'm
too.
telling you, he is amazing. I've got a male therapist that does the
Mhm.
somatic work, and a female therapist that does counseling stuff. But
Mhm.
I learnt from him. I trained with him,
Wow.
and also obviously I had a lot of therapy with him, but yeah, I knew with the counseling it wasn't quite enough. Like I needed to add more in to
Mm.
help those that have been through trauma, and it's worked. I don't want to say like magic or stuff for
Mm.
Allah because we
Yeah.
don't do so magic around here. But yeah, I think that's why I think Allah has blessed me with that, because I've gone through it
Alhamdulillah.
myself. I've had the
Mm.
therapy and I know how effective it is, and I don't want to see sisters suffer,
Mm.
you know?
And I think it's so important because as a therapist, you can't
Mm,
pour out of an empty cup.
my favorite saying. I love
Yeah, I
that.
love
Yeah,
it as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. Always using that analogy.
So how do you as a therapist counselor like fill up your cup?
Oh my God. I'm like, you know what it is? It's so funny you asked that, because I'm like the self care
Yo, I love it.
queen.
Oh, I
Like,
love this bit of self-care, darling.
listen, I remember when I was training and I was on Islam channel and
Mm,
I had clients. What else was it? And I was studying at the same time, because when you're training, you have to do your studying,
mm.
and that's when I suffered burnout. So I can remember
Oh,
getting off one of my
burnout.
client sessions and feeling like I just felt like I need to sit on the floor,
Yeah.
and I could my signs are like, again, they're physical. It was like burning in my head, and I just
Mm,
felt like I'd had enough sleep, but I felt tired, and I
yeah.
just
Drained.
drained, like really, really
Yeah.
drained. And I felt like I could handle it. I felt like I was on it and I was going for it and I was doing everything. But it was like, you know, when computer says no,
Yeah. Computer says no.
like that was what it was. It was like, no,
Yeah.
your body's not up for it. And at that point, I made a decision to stop one day.
Mm.
And now I only work about 4 days. So
So
subhanallah.
brilliant.
I'm usually off Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I
Mm.
don't take on a lot of clients. This is another thing people are like,
Good.
well, how come you don't? I
Yeah.
don't want to take on too many clients, because it takes out a lot of energy, especially when you're
Mm.
doing the somatic work,
Yeah.
and then you're taking on people's, like you, I'm an empath,
Mm. Yeah.
so you're taking in people's pain,
Mm.
and so you need to. I don't feel like doing back to back 8 sessions a day, back to back to back. I feel like the less you work and the more you can pour.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I never had that mindset a couple of years ago. I was like, yeah, let's go, let's just do more. And sometimes I do feel a little bit like, oh, I could, but then
I
I'm
need
like,
to work on that.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
need
But
to really
it's
work on that because I feel like for me, it's just I'm just
constantly
constant.
on the go.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
I do burn out. Like I do burn out. Like I've got my own business
Hmm,
now.
hmm, hmm.
I'm a full-time mom.
Yeah,
I work
mashallah, Allah barak.
full-time
Yeah.
Monday to Friday. So I'm not catching a break.
Okay, okay.
It's just constant. And I know that it's not good and I need
It's
to adjust it,
yeah.
but it's like it's about how. How do I adjust it?
But
How do
you
I
hesitated when you said how,
Yeah.
because you really deep down you know how you can
Yeah.
adjust it.
I know how I can
Do you
adjust
know what
it.
I
It's
mean?
true.
You know, like, do
Yeah.
I really need to work 5 days? I don't
Mm.
know your
No, it's
circumstances,
true.
but
No.
do I really need to, okay,
Yeah.
great, mashallah, I'm about you're doing a podcast, but again, podcasts are work. I know, because I've
Yes.
had
Oh,
one before.
yeah.
But there is a point where, like, when
I
I
forgot to mention the podcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And there was a
Yeah.
point when I was when because I just did a business mentorship
Mhm.
with Khadija Safari, and there was a point when my coach asked me, because I've got a coach as well as a therapist and a
Yeah.
counselor. She was like, "What's your main priority?" And I was like, the podcast."
Mm.
And then it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, you want to like work on this program that you're
Yeah.
setting up for sisters, you want to really pour into this, and your main focus is the podcast. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I gave it up because I was like, I can't do the book. And that was the other thing as well, the
Mhm.
podcast, Islam channel, therapy,
It's too
studying.
much.
It's just, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
Super
Yeah,
women at
why?
this
And
point.
why? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, self-care. I'm off.
Mhm.
Sometimes I do work like half day on Thursday.
Mhm.
I have therapy regularly. With When you're a therapist, you have to have a supervisor. So
Mhm.
you have somebody that you go to anonymously and talk about issues you're having with
Yeah.
your clients. I have my massages usually once a month. Shout out to Pay. Pay is Thai massage. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
I might have to
Listen.
pay a
You can
visit.
come to Brentwood, man. It's not
Yeah.
too far. Listen, she is amazing,
I need
honestly.
it. I need
It's
it.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Really
I
is.
need somebody to break my back.
Yeah. She'll do all of
But
that.
you know, when you said why, it just hit me like, as a black woman,
Mm,
I feel like it's been drilled in us to work
okay.
super hard.
Yeah.
Like, work hard.
Like you have to
Otherwise,
overcompensate.
yeah, or
Okay.
you just have to do a lot. You have to work hard. You
Yeah.
have to put your all into it.
Mm,
Otherwise, I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it.
mm.
Just
Do you
that's
think
been
you're,
drilled into us. You need to work hard. You need to
yeah,
be able, or like I need to work so hard that I don't need to like sort of rely on anyone but Allah. Because I always
okay.
ask Allah for rizq, and
Right.
He's sufficient for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I I never want to be in a place or a position
Mm-hmm.
where my children are suffering, or
Okay.
like, of course I have my husband who's gonna assist me
Allah
and help
Barak.
me,
Yeah.
but I know how life is as well at the
Mm,
same time. So I don't know, it's a difficult one.
yeah.
It's difficult to kind of go into autopilot mode.
Mm. It
Yeah.
sounds like I can hear like two things. Like one being like there's some sort of fear. You
Yeah.
mentioned like children, but remember, children don't really
Mm,
get their love and their
no,
healthiness
exactly.
from having a
Yeah.
lot of money and having a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things and having
True.
it's all about the nurturing and the love
Yeah.
and the pour, like you said, pouring into them.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other thing? I've totally forgot what the other thing was. My mind's gone completely
Trust
blank.
me, baby brain this way as well.
I'm just like so yeah. I can't remember,
So
but
the fear, or being a black woman and having to work really hard,
yeah,
and
like your self worth.
yeah.
Where is your self worth standard set?
Mm,
Because if you're comfortable and okay, I don't like to say confident. I don't like that
yeah.
word. I think it's overused in the wrong way.
Confident.
Being
Yeah.
comfortable in who you are,
Mm-hmm.
what is it about telling people this is what I do that makes you feel, does it make you feel that
Mm,
better? As you mentioned, I'm a black woman. Oh, if I
yeah.
say I do A, B, C, and D, does that make me feel more
Mm,
comfortable about that? You
yeah.
see what I mean? Because
Yeah. Like,
from
we're not lazy or bummy, or
right, exactly,
it's like
exactly.
we're trying to break
Yes,
stereotypes.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, like, it's a difficult, I think it's a really
Mm,
difficult one. I'm gonna have to sit with that.
sit with it, sit
Yeah.
with it, sit with it.
Seriously, because it's just not, it's not feasible. It's not something that can
Mm,
be done long term. I can't
yeah,
do this long term,
yeah.
and I don't
And
plan to,
especially if you've,
inshallah.
yeah, and especially if you're
Yeah.
kind of, it doesn't sound like you're doing it for you,
No,
not
the
all of it.
podcast is something that I love,
Yes,
like,
yes.
because I get people like
Yeah.
you and Amira and, you know, Sister Soul. I get a
Oh,
lot of
yeah, my sister's
value.
so,
Yeah,
mashallah,
like,
Mubarak.
and Bint Athens. I'm getting so much value. And I
Yes.
think that's something I can't pay any money for that.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a single amount of money that I can get from the value that I'm going to get from you or from anyone. So I love that. And I
Yeah.
love adding value to people's lives. So
Yes.
that to me is amazing. But um, yeah, I think when you overdo,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
But I think, like, I always say to my clients, where can you find time for you?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Like, it doesn't mean to say you have to give up everything you love or give
Mhm.
up,
Mhm.
your what brings in your finances and all of that. But
Mm.
there is always a way that you can find time for yourself. But then if you're not making that a
Mhm.
priority, then you
Mm.
will always find other things to do.
True.
And so it's a personal choice. Like,
Yeah.
ultimately, we've I don't want to say we've all got the same 24 hours and get cancelled. Yeah, because like we ain't, okay, we have not.
No, we don't.
But
Yeah.
we do, we each, most of us have the ability, especially
Mhm.
where we're living, to
Mhm.
be able to have time for ourselves. But if we're filling it up with the, like you said about the cup, If we're
Yeah.
keep pouring out of the cup and we're not pouring anything back in,
Mm.
then we are going to get burnt out. And the thing is with burnout, it's not just, oh, okay, I feel a bit burnt out. You can get physically sick from that as
Yeah, oh,
well.
yeah,
You
definitely.
know,
Oh, the rundown.
got to
It's
be
not a
careful.
joke. So I wanted to ask you a few more questions. So what advice do you have for individuals seeking therapy while navigating cultural or religious stigma? You know,
Mm,
like some people have that stigma against therapy and counseling. Like, oh,
yeah,
I'll be honest, my mum, she
really.
says, I talk to Allah, please.
Yeah.
I talk to Allah. I don't talk to anybody. I don't
Oh,
need
bless
any.
her. May
But
Allah
I'm like,
bless her.
but it's just good
Love
to
her.
speak to, like
Yeah, yeah.
let that out.
Mm.
But what would you say to those, or to those type of
Yeah,
people?
I think it is a difficult one because I feel like it's not just I say one thing and you're like, oh, actually, let's go to therapy. It
Mm,
takes a lot more than just one person saying one line of, all right,
mm,
let's go to therapy, guys. It takes like conversations.
yeah.
You know, remember, there's a person needs to see something 7 times
Mm,
in psychology before they're sold. So it's,
wow.
you know, it's opening up the door for people to actually listen and see what benefits it, you know, has for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've just grown up in a particular way where you think I only need to talk to a lot, there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing
Yeah.
is, people are, you know, the suicide rate, I was reading it when I put out my mental health stats the other day. I'm not
Yeah.
laughing because of that, but
No, no, definitely.
you know, it's getting higher, it's not getting lower. The
Subhanallah.
whole idea that people are suffering in silence and then feeling like they want to go and take their own life, it's not a joke. So
Yeah.
it's like if you're really sick physically, you are going to turn to Allah,
Mm-hmm.
you know, pray to Hajjud, get up when Allah's descended to the lowest heaven,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, really like find the best times to make dua and really turn back to
Mm-hmm.
Allah, you know, make sure you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
What if you're still physically unwell? You can't just sit there. It's not permissible for
No,
you to just sit there
exactly. You
and
still go
allow
to
your
a doctor.
exactly.
Yeah.
You still go to a doctor, you still go
Yeah.
to the hospital, you still go and seek. That's
Mm-hmm.
still tawakkul.
Yeah.
So there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with
Mm-hmm.
if it helps you,
Mm-hmm.
then why not?
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think it's about trying to convince people. I think it's about people just being a little bit more open to the idea
More
that for
educated on it.
some people,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it may help.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's actually life changing. Like for myself,
It is.
I was praying, practicing, I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And it actually allowed me to get closer to Allah.
Yeah.
Why? Because then I felt better. And
Mm-hmm.
when you feel better, you worship Allah better. You become more
Mm.
grateful. All of these things, they just strip off all
Yeah.
the negative stuff and it leaves you more connected to Allah. So I don't think it's not contradictory at all.
No,
Not
I
at
don't
all.
think so as well. And I do think, obviously the older generation, they have a different way of thinking, but
Yeah.
it is very important if you feel
Yes.
like your mental health is struggling and you are dealing with, mental illness, you need to seek a
Yeah.
doctor for that
Yes, yes, yes.
area of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
It's not taboo to go and do that. It's not an issue. I even think the same for marriage counseling as well.
So
Like
important, man.
if you're struggling in your marriage, go and seek
Go and
help.
seek
Why are you
help.
struggle? Why are you both sh- strong and strong?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're both
yeah. Strong and strong. Yeah, I like that
struggling
one.
and
Yeah.
like butting heads and trying to aid it with
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
little rubbish. It's not going to work.
Mm.
Go and seek help from somebody more wiser than you who
Yeah.
has the actual tools to ensure that your
Yeah.
relationship flourishes.
Flourishes. And I'm an advocate for that because even though I don't do marriage counselling, I have quite a strong opinion that I don't think women should do marriage counselling. That's just my
Mm,
opinion.
okay.
I just think if we look at the sunnah, it would usually be a man that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that somebody would go to. I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's just bit fitnerish to have a
Okay.
woman because the thing is a
Mm-hmm.
woman, you know, like when you look into the sunnah,
Mm-hmm.
it's always double the amount of women to men to do like certain verdicts in
Mm.
court and so on and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
forth.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We are very emotionally led, and I've heard of stories
Mm-hmm.
where the woman will just take the woman's side. We just
Yes.
unconsciously
Yes.
we support. You know how it
I think
is.
that's why I'd be a good counselor. Because I'll be like,
we,
girl,
yeah.
go and clean your bed sheets. Stop being silly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But if it
Yeah.
was the other way round, you
Mhm.
would support the woman. That's the thing.
Mm,
I know you have quite an objective view,
mm,
but if you felt like we just lean towards
mm.
the, oh, I want, like, just, oh, what we are ourselves, female.
Yeah.
And sometimes that
I
can
don't
mean,
think like that though.
do you not think like that?
No, sometimes
I think a lot, yeah,
sometimes women are wrong
yeah, yeah,
completely.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I can sit there and actually listen to somebody's
yeah,
story and be like, no, you're wrong.
yeah,
But that's me, and I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
the way I've been raised as
Raised as
well.
well, a bit more
But I
objective.
do get it. Like women sometimes give each other very poor, rubbish advice.
Advice. Yeah, yeah,
And I've
yeah.
seen it in my own circles. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's fine, girl. Just no,
Yes. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
don't do that.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
just listen to your husband, actually.
yeah.
Go with your husband,
Mm-hmm.
take that time, communicate. No, girl, he's wrong. He's wrong. He shouldn't.
Yeah.
Some
And
women
this
even
is,
fuel the fire,
yeah.
and
And
it's
this,
not good.
I had a client of mine, her husband was put off because
Yeah.
they went to, and in the masjid and everything else. And the woman seemed to take her side more. And
Mm.
this is why one of the reasons why I say it. I just feel like women are just, with a bent rib, we're just more emotional. And
Yeah.
maybe not in every single case,
No,
but there's
definitely.
always a chance that if I
Mhm.
sit here with my husband and he tells a story, that you're going to lean towards
Mm.
me and what I'm saying
Yeah.
rather than him. And that
Mm.
happens with a lot,
It does, yeah.
like you,
It
like you
does
see
happen.
it.
It
So
does.
but I'm an advocate for healthy marriage,
Mhm.
with my clients. So my clients, a lot of what I
Mhm.
do is about, taking accountability. So this
Mm.
isn't, whilst I don't say you're wrong,
Mhm.
we look at what are you doing
Mhm.
that you could change.
Mm.
Just taking accountability softly, gently,
Yeah.
understanding yourself a bit more. I
Mhm.
had one of my clients come in and she was very much like, oh, it's him, and blaming him. And then, after a little while, when we started, because we just, gently explore, she was
Mhm.
like, you know what, I've changed. And alhamdulillah. And I love to
Yeah.
see that, like
Alhamdulillah.
little gentle changes.
Yeah.
And that saves, we're supposed to, as Muslims, we've got to be very careful with
Yes.
advocating the opposite way, just because and this is what happens with a counselor.
Mhm.
You have to be very self-aware.
Yeah.
You have to be very much aware not to impose your thoughts and
Own
feelings
opinions.
on the client. And you
Yeah.
have to be, as well, as a Muslim woman, as a Muslim,
Mhm.
you have to be understand that the shaitan wants to come in between a marriage. So
Yep.
you cannot be that shaitan. So you have to do
Yes.
everything, even if you see certain things happening.
Mhm.
It's not your place
Yeah.
to overstep the mark and start,
Oh, divorce him.
yeah,
Yeah.
astaghfirullah, like,
Yeah. It's
you know,
that is a big, because I read something about the shaitan, like Iblis.
mm,
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. But apparently when the shayateen come to him and
yeah,
they're like, oh, we made him drink, they're like,
yes,
not good enough.
not good
Oh, we
enough.
made him do this,
Hmm,
not good
hmm.
enough. We made a couple split up. You're my favorite, come here.
Yeah,
Like the
they go and have a
shayateen,
party
they
in the
have a
sea.
party, they celebrate
Yeah,
it. They're so happy that
mm,
they've made this relationship die,
so,
so
so
it is a big
it is,
responsibility. And I
it
do
is.
think, there's certain things that are clear, but there's also, be careful, be very,
Yeah,
very careful when imposing, like you said, your views and
yeah,
opinions onto people's relationship, because at the end of the day, like, I forgot, one of my aunts used to say, a husband and wife, when they lay down together, that's them. You're
that's
not
them.
there.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah,
in
yeah,
between
yeah,
them.
yeah,
You don't know what's going on between a man and a wife in their
yeah.
household. So realistically, mind your business.
Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. And but like I said, but also be the person to
Mm,
try to, like, for a therapist, you're because you're a Muslim first and then a therapist.
yes.
Do you know what I mean? Well, I am a Muslim first and then a therapist. I'm not a
Hmm.
therapist first, then a Muslim.
Mm,
And that's why I don't adhere to some of the ethical frameworks, because it's
yeah.
not in line with Islam. I
Yeah.
adhere to the Sharia. So
That's it.
my position is to support
Hmm.
my sister, my client, to be a better wife, to be a better mother, to be a better person, to be more self-aware,
Hmm.
to change things. And sometimes people don't want to be the one to take the first step to
Yeah.
change,
Yes.
because oh, it's him. It's no. You know what?
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't
Mhm.
create us perfect,
It's true.
and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's all good. It's not. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. We've all got a past. We've all gone through things,
Mhm.
and sometimes, and I've seen it happen, and it's amazing when, because obviously I don't support men, but the female
Mhm.
takes that active role, takes accountability, makes those changes, and what happens? The husband
Softens.
softens. Wallahi. Yeah.
It's true. It's true, because a lot of the time, some men will say, "Oh, you have to be in control of your household," but actually, it's us women that have the most control. We have the
Yeah.
control. It's the truth.
But
Like,
it's not asserting it.
it's not assertive, and it's a subtle
Yes,
control,
yes, yeah.
but it's a powerful control. We
Yes, it's
do have it.
extremely
It's
powerful.
very powerful, and you can either uplift your household or you can break it
Yeah,
down,
yeah, yeah.
just on how you put that forward.
100%.
Do you want to go through some dilemmas that some of my Instagram
Oh my
followers
gosh,
have
if he
said?
said dilemmas, oh my gosh, dilemmas.
Some dilemmas.
Where did we get these from? Where are they from?
So I just asked people, like, what would they like to hear, or you know,
Man, I don't want to be. Oh, what's that podcast that does the dilemmas?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Like, oh, and I'm like, I hope they're clean and not
No, they're
too.
clean. They're clean. They're not the nasty
They're not like,
dilemmas.
oh, I caught him do it, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay, someone said, Mina.gm18 said how to deal with social anxiety.
Oh yeah. You know what? Social anxiety is very, very common.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people frame it as social anxiety, but it's not actually social anxiety.
Mm.
So they say, "Oh, I get like scared, or I can't speak, or I freeze up."
Mm-hmm.
But when I speak to the person, they don't have any of those symptoms, and I'm
Mm.
somebody that they're socializing with. But it's
Oh.
something that's going on in their head that they talk themselves out of. They're going into the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe planning, like if this is outside of a therapy,
Mm-hmm.
what it is that you're going to talk about when I know it sounds a bit weird,
No.
but when if you're feeling like you're socially anxious, you're feeling like I don't have anything to say, I don't have anything to add, I'm going to be judged. So maybe planning to, when you go into a social setting, what am I going to say?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? Who am I going to sit with? Like, get it all planned out so that when you go there,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like you've rehearsed it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
don't give in to the
Mm.
shaitan and not go out and not socialize. Just do it anyway. Now that's a
Wow,
really hard
that's a
one,
good advice.
but
Push
the
yourself.
more you
Yeah.
isolate yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the more you're going to suffer with the social isolation, and the harder it's going to be to go out.
Mm.
But if it's really bad and you can't do that and you're really struggling, get a therapist, because normally it connects back to mentioned bullying,
Mm.
bullying even by parents, maybe
Yeah.
not having the
Mm.
right sort of.
That humiliation kind of thing.
Yes, yes, yes,
So,
yes.
you said you don't like the word self confidence, but self comfortability.
Yeah, yeah,
Does
yeah,
that
yeah.
play a role in like social anxiety, and maybe?
It, yeah, because
Mm,
it's normally linked to how you feel about yourself.
yeah.
So you don't, because it's not linked to what you know, it's how you feel.
Yeah.
So you will know how to interact with someone. That's why I don't like the labels, because is it really social
It's too many
anxiety?
labels.
It's not, is it? If
Mm,
you're comfortable with someone,
yeah.
you can easily speak about subjects for hours and hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that you haven't got anything to say. It's not that you're scared of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you said, you're there's something within you that
Mm,
you're not comfortable,
yeah.
and then you overthink it and you talk yourself in your own head
Yeah.
out of going into those settings.
It's true. No, that's really good. Honestly, I think that's amazing advice.
But it does normally come from a lot of people. It comes from bullying at school.
Mm, yeah, I would say that as
Yeah,
well, to be honest, because if you've been in such a situation where it's just anytime you've been around a group of people and
yeah,
you're shunned,
yeah, yeah,
shamed,
yeah, yeah,
humiliated, vilified, degraded,
yeah.
it's almost like, okay, just avoid, avoid, avoid,
Yeah, yeah,
avoid.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So hmm, someone said living as Muslims in Europe. Yeah, how to get over man phobia.
Oh, yeah, you
I
said,
did say that to
yeah.
Amira.
I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
I don't know. I've never heard of it myself. Man
Like,
phobia.
in what sense? Like,
Just choose the bear at this
yeah,
point. But
I don't know about all that.
well, we've had a great discussion.
We have.
Honestly, I didn't even expect myself to cry. That I got so emotional. And to be fair, if I didn't skip past that part of the
You would
topic,
have carried.
it
It would
would
have
have
carried
just, it
on.
would have been an absolute nightmare.
It's good to, you know what?
But I'm so happy.
One thing I always
Yeah.
say is good to cry. Crying is healing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with crying. Don't be
No, it
sorry.
is a
Don't be
healing.
upset or embarrassed. It's good. I don't like making people cry, although I do make quite a few people cry.
Yeah.
So and I
No, it's
you know
amazing. Well, my sisters laugh at me every time because I'm the emotional one in the family. Literally, that one over there, she's always
yeah.
laughing at me every time I cry.
Oh,
She just thinks it's hilarious.
yeah.
But I really do appreciate you coming on.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
where can everyone find you?
Well, mainly on Instagram,
Hmm.
Aisha Mercedes.
You've got some good content about like
Inshallah.
counseling, mashallah, and everything else. So may Allah reward you and
Yeah.
increase your your your
Mm-hmm,
content
mm-hmm.
and have a greater reach. I think
I mean,
even if it's just one person that you can
yeah,
impact,
yeah.
honestly, I think that makes a huge difference. But I think this topic has been
It has. It
amazing
has.
and I hope it impacts those watching in such a positive way, inshallah, ya Rab.
Yeah.
And we're gonna work together some more, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah, inshallah. And I was just going to say as well,
Hmm.
because we kind of spoke about it at the beginning and then we
Yeah,
kind of went off a bit, but that whole idea of connecting being a Muslim with
yeah,
the therapy, that is what my program entails.
yes.
It is a holistic program for mind, body, and soul.
Hmm.
And the reason why that is because I don't think you can have one without the other.
Yeah.
Um, so anyone that's
Please,
interested,
if you're interested, Aisha Mercedes is
click.
your girl. I think, especially for women, is it just
It's
women that
Muslim women, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Muslim women, if you need a therapist, counselor, Aisha Mercedes is your girl because at least she understands your
Okay.
faith and she understands your needs as well.
Mm,
And inshallah, she can help you to guide and navigate through this journey called dunya, and
yes.
you can get that healing from that perspective,
Yeah.
inshallah. But thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Jazakallah khair. It's been
And
a pleasure.
yes, it's been an amazing
It's been
pleasure.
like
Laughs,
an
cries.
emotional, yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna say an emotional roller coaster, laughing,
definitely.
crying, and
Allahumma barik.
lovely to finally get to meet you properly
Yes,
as well.
honestly.
Thanks for
Well,
having me.
guys, if you liked this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, follow Aisha Mercedes. I'm going to put all of her handles below. And inshallah, you'll be seeing more of us in the
Inshallah.
future. Inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yay.